It's like when you can go down a high street and you can see all different names and, that appear to be different shops. But when you look at who owns those shops and the holding companies, you find that there are apparent stores that are competing in the high street that are actually owned by the same holding company. So that's how it all works. And in the end, you've got a handful right at the peak of the pyramid of interbreeding families that go back a long way, who are sitting atop the pyramids of the global corporations, global politics, global pharmaceutical industry, global media at ownership level, and they're orchestrating this globalization, this new world order, this Orwellian global fascist state through two other coordinates. One, problem, reaction, solution, which I talked about, create the problem and offer the solution. And the other one is what I call the totalitarian tiptoe. And that is that you're at A and you know you're going to Z, but you know if you go in too big a leap, the change in society is going to be so great that people are going to look up from the game shows and they're going to say, hey, what's going on? What's going on? So you go not from A to Z, you go from A to B, B to D. You go in as big a leap as you can, but not so big that you get too much of a reaction with people seeing that something strange is going on. But again, you're absolutely right, Max, that it's now reached the point where it is so blatant and it's happening now so quickly. I mean, it's not the totalitarian tiptoe anymore, it's the totalitarian sprint, that more and more people can do little more than see that the world is changing extremely rapidly, and it's doing so not through random events and, well, it's just the way the world is. It's coldly calculated.
Oh, very much so. I mean, they seem to be escalating it very much, I think, because people are waking up. I mean, they are getting an enormous backlash from people. I've been talking to people for a long time about non-compliance. I released the film, Fight the New World Order, with global non-compliance. People don't seem to realize that the only way they get away with all this stuff is because we comply with it. We just let them do it. You know, all these laws they put in place. One statement you said that I heard, which I thought was fantastic, about people putting their wheelie bins out in England. I thought that was brilliant. Everyone should put their wheelie bins out every day and just not comply with the law. The way they did with the poll tax in England. People just didn't pay it, so they had to withdraw it. But they only really get away with this because we let them.
Well, that's absolutely right. And, you know, one of the things I've been talking about, particularly in the last few months, is what we have. We've just had it in Britain at the G20 summit in the days of that in London, where the streets of London were full of protesters who were, kept away from the places of the meeting and etc. by loads of police and what they call in America SWAT teams and all the rest of it. And you had these protests. But we've had protests for decade after decade. We've had protests about the invasion of Iraq, but Iraq was invaded. We've had protests all the time, every year, about globalization, but globalization goes on getting quicker. We have protests about world poverty, but world poverty goes on getting worse. And what we really need to do is stop protesting, because what happens is you have the protest, and then people feel good about, well, I've had these say, I've protested, let's go down to the bar and feel good about ourselves. And then what happens? What they've been protesting about happens anyway. And you're absolutely right. The key power we have is not complying with our own enslavement. If you had to bring this down to the people that in full knowledge in this world were manipulating us towards this Orwellian global state, it would be a relative handful. And the people who are being manipulated are now closing in on 7 billion. I think I see a way out of this. And this is why divide and rule is so important in this modus operandi of this elite. They manufacture and exploit the fault lines of religion, of race, of income bracket, of nation, etc. And they want people divided and fighting among themselves, because then the unity of response, the unity of non-compliance, is then diluted, and people are so busy fighting each other and blaming each other that nothing is ever done that has an effect on this whole conspiracy that's going on. I was saying in America in some talks recently, all over America, I mean, I was there for 2 months, from mid-January to mid-March. That country is not on the brink. It's in the process of an economic catastrophe. There's tent cities. There's forests of for sale signs wherever you go. And of course, people who don't have to sell their homes now can't sell them because the banks are selling off foreclosed homes at knockdown prices, which is collapsing the whole housing market. So people are trapped, and people in their hundreds of thousands are leaving their homes because they can't pay their mortgages. And what I was saying here was, hold on a second, the behavior of the banks has created the economic collapse, which means you've lost your job and now can't pay your mortgage. And when the banks that created the problem are coming along and saying, you're out of your house, you can't pay us back, you're leaving.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Stay where you are. If everybody who had their home foreclosed by the banking system refused to leave, the system couldn't cope. But it's because people comply again, oh, well, we better go, it's the law, then nothing changes because people lose their homes and the banking system goes on calling the shots and controlling the game.
Absolutely, and it's so manufactured. It really is. I mean, I don't know how people can't see this. I was listening to Max Kaiser the other day, and he was calling it economic terrorism, which is exactly what it is. It's economic terrorism. It's like a financial 9/11, and people really do need to stop complying with all these sorts of things. It's just ridiculous.
If we together, in any significant number, stop complying with our own enslavement, the house of cards will fall. You know, I went to a memorial service for a British comedian many years ago called Larry Grayson. He was a kind of, not I would say he was a friend, he was an acquaintance of mine, I knew him. And there was another comedian there who told this story that Larry Grayson had told him, where Larry Grayson was in an all-male show going around the halls and theatres of Britain many years ago, back in the 50s, 60s. And at the end of the show, all the men came on dressed as sailors, singing Rule Britannia. And as the song went on, they formed a pyramid on the stage. And then Larry Grayson came on dressed as Britannia and got manhandled up to the top of the pyramid for the big finish. And one night, Larry Grayson was saying that one of the sailors in the bottom left-hand corner of the pyramid started getting a cough. And eventually, he was coughing so much he couldn't stay in the pyramid any longer, and he stepped out of it. And what happened is the pyramid collapsed, and Larry Grayson at the top, symbolic of this elite, ended up in the second row because someone who would consider himself just a bit part player, the bottom left-hand corner of this pyramid, stepped out and didn't do his job, didn't do his what he thought he should do, and the whole pyramid collapsed. Because when you look at pyramids, we kind of look up to the top for the power. But where is the power? The power is not in the top of the pyramid. That's only up there because the rest of the pyramid's holding it up there. And that's what we're doing to this system. And if we stop complying with it, then the pyramid must fall, and the people who appear to have the power will be shown to have none at all, because the only power they have is the power we give to them every day. Exactly.
We sort of police ourselves. They've got it all worked out so people police themselves very well, and they do it through division. I've been trying to tell people as well that there is no division amongst people. Race, creed, colour, financial status, it's all division that's illusionary. It's created for us simply so we don't realise the personal power that we have. They're very clever at the way they do this, though.
Well, this is when I've got really more and more deeply into this. and you go beyond what I call the 5 sense level of this, the banking scams and the manipulated wars and the engineered presidents and prime ministers around the world, you start to realize that this is a mind game, and that behind the scenes, behind the smoke screens of presidents like Bush or Obama or Brown or Rudd or whatever, where in the shadows where the real power and the real knowledge is, particularly at the absolutely top levels of the global secret society network, where very advanced knowledge of consciousness and the way the mind works and the way the body works is passed on to the chosen few. That's where the game is really played, because it's a mind game.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been telling people this as well. It's a battle of energy. It truly is a battle of energy. They need to understand the true nature of this reality. I mean, they use our energy to create the reality that they want because we comply with what they want.
Exactly, they do. The thing is,